So, today our focus is on understanding our need for other people. I have been reminded of that more than I care to. Um, I've been telling you for weeks, it seems like the universe, right when I have a topic, the universe feels the need to give me a dose of the experience to make sure that I'm qualified for the day to speak about it. So I'm going to share another little story that the universe decided to pop on me this week that was quite humbling and taught me the importance of needing other people. And not just needing them, but recognizing that's what we're supposed to do. So Tuesday, I go to the eye doctor, and the short version of this is that for months now, my dry eye condition has been ramping up, and I've been throwing contacts on top of them because I had to drive Jeffrey around for 6 weeks for doctor appointments and everything for surgery this past week. And so it was easier to just put my contacts on, wear them all day, whereas normally I'd be wearing my glasses in the office for my corporate job and also for any Unity work I do from home. So, knowing that people like Janice and our friend Tony have been on me since mid-January to see the eye doctor because my eyes have been bloodshot every day. So I go in to see the ophthalmologist, and she tells me, well, your eyes are like the moon right now. They're so rough, and you've been slapping contacts on them, and you've created not only ridges and bumps under your eyelids, but your left eye is forming new blood tributaries, and you've ridged your left cornea. So my response, which I thought was natural, was, could I just wear my contacts for 3 more days? Let me get Jeffrey to the hospital. Let me get through the next 3 days. What could 3 days do? I thought that was natural. And she said, if you wear your contacts, you are going to lose your left eye. You are at risk. She said, do you understand me? I said, do you understand me? I said, 2 jobs, a 15-year-old and a husband having surgery. Do you think I can be without my eyesight? She said, would you like to be without it permanently? I said, do I have 3 days? She didn't think I was funny, but she didn't know I was actually quite serious. So since Tuesday, I've not been able to see. All of you are underwater. And I literally couldn't see to do my hair, anything. I'm doing everything by feeling. And my sheet today is in the biggest font I've ever written. But here's the thing. All of a sudden, on Tuesday, I had to let my husband drive, who couldn't drive. I had to ask for help getting to the hospital. Doctor said, you can't take an Uber? I said, no, I'm not taking an Uber to take my husband to the hospital. Fortunately, our daughter came and at 5:30 in the morning and took us. But I actually had to be led to the bathroom, so now I had a whole audience, I'm sure, of people wondering why. I think the antibiotic and steroid drops are making things more blurry, and the fact that I can't put a lens on my eye. So I tell you all that because this was so humbling. Those of you who know me well know I'm an extremely independent person, and I'm not good at asking for help. In fact, I'm so not good at asking for help that Janice, all the years we've known each other, 20 years, he always says, before you say no, let me ask. So I had that dose this week. And what I want you to understand is that suddenly, both Jeffrey and I had to learn. He couldn't walk, I couldn't see. We were a heck of a combination. Now, I say all of that because what I want us to really be thinking about is that We shouldn't have to be in a crisis to learn to need others. It's why it's so difficult when we are in a crisis. Because we think we're supposed to be strong, independent people who don't need anyone. And half the time we want to make sure that no one sees us as less than. Right? I'm not incapable. I can take care of myself. In fact, let me take that hammer and wreck that building I need to wreck. But we need to be mindful that this world was not created for us to be alone. And until we understand that the puzzle can't actually come together very well unless we are connected. Just like we do at the end of the service when we sing the peace song. It's the same concept. You know, for thousands of years, people have realized instinctively that they needed people. They knew how to step up. Groups do this really well, but we don't do it quite well enough as individuals. And every one of us has found it difficult, yet valuable, to belong. It's our sense of belonging. How many of you come here on Sunday that you've been coming here since we moved into this new location in 21? How many of you know you belong? That when you walk in the door, you know that no matter what's going on in your life, someone here will acknowledge you and make sure you feel supported. Now, I can't tell how many hands went up, but I'm concerned. I'm trusting you on this. But every one of us has to get to that place to understand that when we work together, we will grow exponentially as people. Our spirit grows when we invite others in, when we allow people to be part of our process. There are several things I wanted to read to you. One is that we grow spiritually. Also, that we are empowered when we have purpose. And we usually have purpose when we're helping someone else or they're helping us. Right? There's that sense, I've got something I've got to do to help somebody today. It's meaningful. The other part of this that's important is that we actually enjoy spending time with other people and learning to receive support. Now, we're usually drawn to being a part of something bigger than us, and we're good at being a part of something bigger than us. However, what's important here is understanding that if you don't get to experience the sense of belonging, the sense of being needed, you don't grow. Your heart doesn't grow, only your mind grows. You know, I was reading this article. Well, let me not get ahead of myself. Can you pause for a minute? I need fluid. Anybody want to make me cry? Sorry. Just bear with me 1 minute. Just a little fluid would help. All right. Oh, God, you are out there. All right. So when we spend time together in common purpose, this is what happens for us. We develop healthier mindsets. We become more resilient. Believe it or not, we live longer lives. We experience a higher level of overall emotional well-being. And believe it or not, physical well-being. Our experience is to teach us that we're simply better together. And if we help one another on a bigger scale by joining together, we recognize there are power in numbers, which is what happened to Dave and the group that painted yesterday. There's power in numbers. If you had to paint a whole house by yourself yesterday, would you have gotten it done? No, but a group of people get together, they're empowered, and they were able to deliver. Deepak Chopra has written about the power of group meditation, and he shares studies show that positive social, political, and economic results that are associated with synchronized group meditation. And there's one in particular I loved. So there's this experience that was conducted during the Lebanon War in the 1980s that showed when 1,000 people in Jerusalem meditated on world peace, there were 75% less war-related deaths during the time they were meditating. And crime also dropped, which they weren't even praying for. They were holding the consciousness in numbers for something powerful. And they were able to accomplish that. But in the actual days the group meditated, all destructive activities that went on had stopped. Just people praying, meditating, holding that level of consciousness. There's an article written by David Watson called The Power of Groups. And he said this. He talks about how we generally learn faster as groups than we do as individuals. And I think this is super true for what I experienced this last week. He said, as individuals, we have limited ability to absorb information, whereas the group becomes this collective reservoir of information. So each person in the group is going to hear something different than the others, right? Groups remember more, that collective memory is better in terms of the amount we remember and accuracy. And this is what happened during his surgery. 3 of us were listening to the doctor, right? 2 of us first, my daughter and myself. And then when we met with Jeffrey, who was, out of his mind at the time. But here's the thing, we all remembered something different. And when we told the story collectively, we had all the pieces we need. We knew what to do, how to help him, all of that. But it took that collectiveness and recognizing we didn't need to be the only one. We don't have to be the perfect person. We don't have to be the only one who knows. We could just take a breath and let someone else help. Another point David Watson made is that groups will hold each other accountable. That individuals within the group help each other stay on course. That happens in our board meetings all the time. We start rambling off and someone inevitably, and it's always a different someone, will help us get back on track. Groups expand faster. They gain momentum in their purpose together. And while it isn't always going to feel like we are better off with other people, the truth is we're not meant to live alone. And we absolutely have to get this right. And I don't want any of you to have your eyes go out so that you can learn that you need other people. And there are 2 things I've figured out that get in our way. One is pride, and the second is ego. So pride gets in our way because we don't want anybody to think we're not capable, that they're any less than, that we're strong and powerful people. Ego gets in the way because we're worried that we'll be judged if we ask for help. Oh, could you help me? Geez, what's going on with her today? That's all our mind. It's just our mind playing games. People would love to help us if we let them. And fortunately for Jeffrey and I, we had so many people who had offered help. We could have reached out before I couldn't see. I thought we were doing pretty good until that day. But we are not meant to be on islands. And I want us all to get this right. If we learn to need each other and we depend on one another, it teaches us to be vulnerable and to trust. which is an important aspect of growth. Trust the village you have surrounded yourself with. And if you haven't created a village, create one. This is a perfect place to start. There are so many groups within the group that do things, that manage outreach, that manage help, that volunteer somewhere, somehow, something. And the most interesting thing to me is understanding how the birds and geese know this better than adults. So I'm sure you've noticed by now that geese fly in V formations, right? I don't know how many of you know about it, but I talked about it a few years ago. I want to share. So first of all, they instinctively understand that forming together in the V will reduce air resistance for the whole flock. So they know instinctively a bird to get in line and reduce the stress on them. If a goose falls out of formation, it suddenly feels the drag and resistance of trying to go it alone and quickly gets back into the formation to avoid the stress. Is there any reason we don't do that? How many of you have been stressed in this last week in your life? Come on. Yeah, come on. Really? There you go. Be honest. Okay, when we're stressed, we need to get into that formation. Who can rally with us? Who can take some of the resistance off? Who can help? As a community, birds and geese know to work together. There's the leader in the front. When they get tired, they literally move to the back. And somebody else steps forward. They just know this. There is no course for them on V formation. How to get in line. Wind resistance. They don't take tests. Geese in the back of the V formation will make a honking sound from behind to encourage those up front to pick up the pace. How does that happen? Us, we just honk our horns, asking people to pick up the pace. Flying in a V formation increases a flock's flying area by 72%. They can cover 72% more territory and get further than they can alone because they know how to work together. As a side note, I wanted to share this, something I read about pelicans, that they fly alone, beat their wings more frequently, and have higher rates than those that fly in formation. And I thought it was funny because it sounded like us, right? Trying to keep going. But my favorite aspect of the way these geese work together was that when one goose gets sick and falls, two automatically go along. And they stay with that sick bird or help that bird be protected by any harm. They remain by that goose's side until the bird flies or passes. And what I think is important for us today is in recognizing that we could ask ourselves this series of questions. So just take this in. How can needing one another help us reduce the stress we often feel? How could we manage to encourage one another to keep going? How can we improve in our ability to keep track of each other and hold each other accountable or notice when someone is missing from the group? And when members of our group go missing, do we find ways to help them to recover or maybe just find their way back? In all of this, what I believe helps us is that we need to get to a place where we have no excuses anymore for why we are not reaching out to people. Not just when we need help, but because we want to help them. This is our chance to step back. We are unity people. There's a reason when you look at the word unity, there's no I that allows us. Yes, there's an I in unity, I get it. But what I'm trying to tell you is unified means there's more than one. So we need to really get to a place where we are not letting others suffer. And more importantly, get a place where we're proactive, where we need people just because, and they know that. And we remind them of how grateful we are. Let's review our takeaways, assuming I can read them. Okay, understanding our need for one another can help us first nurture everyone's need to belong and watch how people show up. Number 2, to commit to achieving success together. It's empowering and it's enlightening. Number 3, embrace the power in numbers and experience and trust the energy that exists. And number 4, learn that it's okay to depend on other people, to be vulnerable, and know you're not alone. And the affirmation I have for us today is, I affirm my need for others. Let's say that together. I affirm my need for others. And our quote today is from Helen Keller, who said, alone we can do little, together we can do so much. Let's take that in. And so we pause for a moment to recognize the importance of needing one another. The joy of helping others. The knowledge that we are part of that gigantic puzzle in this universe. And if we don't play our part and we don't reach out to other people, our puzzle will never be completed. It's a powerful world, and we play a powerful part. And so we say thank you, God, for the gift of others and the gift of knowing that we are far more powerful together. And so it is. Amen.